Well, good evening and thank you for joining us on this New Year's Day. We have a special edition of News 31, the Year in Review. We start off our look back at 1995 with some headline stories. It was quite a memorable year, and one image that may stand out in the minds of many here in the Upper Valley was the implosion of the Mary Hitchcock Hospital in Hanover. Within seconds, a major piece of Upper Valley history was reduced to rubble. The Faulkner House served as the main building of the old Mary Hitchcock Hospital, a hospital that provided care in our area throughout the century.
It's the end of an era, certainly, for those of us who are professionals here and for the community.
But all was not lost with this implosion. In fact, the collapsed building revealed keys to the past. Time capsules were found among the rubble.
We know that the event occurred. Mary Hitchcock Memorial Hospital was built. How did it occur? Why did it occur? We got part of our answer today.
While folks tried to hold on to those memories, they'd soon enough forget what Mother Nature had in store for the Twin States this year. A mild winter proved devastating to most ski areas, enough to force one to close down. Land and equipment hit the auction block at King Ridge this summer, a summer with record low rainfall and drought warnings, keeping emergency management officials on guard. But when the rains did come, it was too fast for the ground to absorb, and floods roared through 6 counties, washing away roads, homes, businesses, and flooding out a sewage treatment plant.
170,000 gallons a day, and that's what's going to be going through to the river, untreated.
But 1995 certainly wasn't a total washout. It was also a year of firsts. The new Vermonter rail service came online, on track with a more tourist-friendly travel schedule. The first ever Walmart also entered the state through the southwestern corner. The new store in Bennington, though, took away Vermont's status as the only state in the country without the national chain. The state also lost several of its rest areas in 1995, but not without a fight, especially from veterans who wanted to keep the Sharon area open, the site of the state's Vietnam Veterans Memorial. What Vermont did gain this year was a controversial BGH labeling law. Officials said the consumer had a right to know if the dairy product they were using was from a cow treated with the synthetic hormone, while manufacturers stressed that it was all FDA approved. It wasn't such a good year for those who like to light up. Smoking was banned from restaurants that couldn't provide a separate room with a separate license and ventilation system. And to add insult to injury, smokers were also slapped with a 24 cents per pack cigarette tax, all in an effort to pay for health care to 15,000 poor Vermonters. 1995 also saw a record number of rabies cases in southern Vermont. Several people were bitten by these rabid raccoons, skunks, and foxes.
And I heard her scream again. I knew that something was wrong, something was hurting her, but I didn't know what. I had no clue.
A hot controversy was also cooked up at the Denny's restaurant when 2 state troopers accused a cook of spicing up their eggs with Tabasco sauce. The assault on the officers was later thrown out of court. Some national stories also hit home here in the Twin States. In memory of the victims of the Oklahoma City bombing, memorial marches filled the streets, and gestures of goodwill filled boxes heading to the victims and their families. And with the accused Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols' ties to a militia group, attention turned to the local New Hampshire militia here in the Upper Valley.
We certainly are not sponsoring any kind of a call to arms.
Finally, 1995 did see the end to the trial of the century, as O.J. Simpson's acquittal for the murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman drew a very strong, mixed reaction.
Going in without search warrants scares me. It takes all of our rights away.
I pretty much think it's disgusting, actually. I think it's disgusting that a wife beater and a drug abuser has now been set free.
A New Hampshire lawyer has even began legal proceedings to stop the Jews from making any money on his name. Bill Ritchie says O.J. as a trademark can be considered shocking or offensive. Well, as you know, the Twin States are a political hotbed this time of year, especially with the first-in-the-nation primary only weeks away. But as you'll see when we come back, the heavy hitters began arriving months ago.
The presidency precludes the bestowal of greater honor. And of course, he was right.
lost memories of teenagers. I've always liked it.
Well, politics as usual here in the Twin States means major national figures flock to our area. Joining me now to look at what went on politically this year is News 31's Malka Doherty.
Thank you, Tina. In 1995, both New Hampshire and Vermont faced controversial issues. Some were resolved and some weren't. And with New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation primary status, this year the Twin States saw their share of President Clinton and those trying to replace him. In 1995, New Hampshire and Vermont got used to having President Clinton around. In June, he received an honorary degree at Dartmouth College.
You know, when President Eisenhower came here, he said, "This is what a college is supposed to look like." And I have to tell you, even in the rain, it looks very, very good to me.
He made history in Claremont, New Hampshire, meeting in a public forum with Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich. However, the crowd didn't get the face-off that was expected. And Vermonters gave the president a warm welcome when he was in Burlington for the National Governors Association. Over the year, presidential hopefuls were also plentiful. Frontrunner Bob Dole announced in Exeter, New Hampshire,
"I have come to New Hampshire with a grateful heart to declare that I am a candidate for the presidency of the United States."
And Lamar Alexander in Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Phil Graham made his pitch in Haverhill, and candidates, here's publisher Steve Forbes, were all over local television. And at the end of the year, they were all at the New Hampshire State House filing for the primaries. President Clinton sent the First Lady in his place. While national politicians were campaigning in the Twin States, local legislators were dealing with some controversial issues. In New Hampshire, the legislature passed Governor Steve Merrill's proposal to cut $32 million from the Department of Health and Human Services. The plan drew criticism from many, but the governor stood firm.
The alternative is the status quo. And the status quo will necessitate raising taxes. There's no doubt about that at all.
And in Vermont, a legislative committee tabled a plan to bring casino gambling to the state. Las Vegas businessman Eric Nelson wanted to convert the old Green Mountain racetrack in Pownell into a casino. Governor Howard Dean was adamantly opposed to the idea.
I think it's going to lead to higher crime. It's going to devastate the tourist industry. It's going to cost us jobs, not bring jobs. I have asked Eric Nelson to withdraw his proposal. I think it's in the best interest of Vermont that this proposal not go forward any further.
All those in favor, opposed, the ayes have it.
But what did go forward this year was an approval by the New Hampshire Executive Council to replace the deteriorating Ledyard Bridge, which connects Norwich, Vermont, and Hanover, New Hampshire.
1, 2, 3.
Ironically, groundbreaking for the project came one day before the Granite State was nationally ranked as having the second worst bridges in the country. And finally, 1995 brought tragedy and sadness as both states lost leaders. In Vermont, the president of the state Senate, John Bloomer, was killed in a car crash at the beginning of the session. He had been on his way to the State House. Lieutenant Governor Barbara Snelling broke the news to lawmakers.
I ask the roll to join me in a moment of silence.
A respiratory disease took the life of Agriculture Commissioner George Dunsmore. And the town manager and former police chief of Brattleboro, Bruce Campbell, passed away after having a heart attack. And early in December, New Hampshire lost former Republican U.S. Representative James Cleveland. He died of complications from a stroke he had suffered earlier. He was 75.
And 1996 promises to be an exciting political year for the Twin States. In Vermont, legislators will take up the casino gambling issue, and New Hampshire, of course, has the primaries coming up on February 20th. Still ahead on this look back at 1995, some breaking news stories, including murders that rocked one small town and the arrest of a neighbor.
Hi, Kathy. Hi.
It's time now to take a look at some of the breaking news stories of 1995. For that, I am joined by News Director Bruce Lyndes.
Thanks, Tina.
1995 was a busy year for the region's public safety officials. Here's a look at some of the biggest breaking news stories we covered. 2 major fires struck the Upper Valley. Hundreds of people viewed the biggest fire in recent White River Junction history when Hartford oil was accidentally set on fire by children. Dozens of firefighters managed to stop the flames from igniting oil storage tanks. While in West Lebanon, this apartment building was gutted by a nighttime blaze that left almost 30 people homeless. Remarkably, no one was seriously injured.
Someone knocked on the door that the place was on fire, and we came out and there was smoke in the house, and we just ran up.
1995 was an unusual year in that 2 fatal plane crashes occurred also in the Upper Valley. 2 people lost their lives when this small plane on a fall foliage photo flight dropped into a Norwich hillside. 5 weeks later, 3 people were killed when their small plane crashed into a wooded area just off Interstate 89 in White River Junction. Authorities aren't sure what caused either crash. In Rutland County, Vermont, police made an announcement that was surprising to many. A gang had moved into town. The Massachusetts-based Los Solitos gang apparently viewed Rutland as a prime location for drug sales and gang recruitment. Authorities forged a public awareness campaign to drive the gang members from the Rutland area, and several arrests were made. While the presence of gang activity in Vermont may have surprised some, a shocking murder was discovered in the small town of Jamaica, Vermont. 2 popular elementary school teachers, John and Sharon Procopio, were found shot to death. As News 31 followed the story, a neighbor told us police had found blood on the doorway to his home, and he was worried about the killer roaming free. Perhaps the year's most perplexing news story was the mysterious disappearance of a college student in Henniker, New Hampshire. P.J. Steverman was last seen leaving a party at this house. After hundreds of people and specially trained search dogs spent days looking for him, absolutely no clues were ever found, leaving his family heartbroken.
It's a nightmare. And it's happening to us.
And the tranquility of a community known for its summer camps was shattered this past summer when 2 camp counselors were sexually assaulted at knife point, a crime that launched an intense police manhunt.
Perhaps the most violent crime that's occurred in this part of the state in a long time.
This story, like many others in this segment, certainly show one side of the news that isn't enjoyable to watch, but they do show what's happening in our region, and it's important for us to reflect on that as we enter a new year. Well, on the lighter side, coming up next, Mark Sudol has the biggest local sports stories of the year. Stay tuned.
A young man, once a choir boy, walks into a...
Mark Sudol's here now with a look back at this year's biggest local sports stories.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Tina, this year has provided us with so many great local sports. We really had to narrow down this year-end piece. Let's take you through the year, beginning in January.
The first big sports story of the year, the Shrine football coaches were announced, Herb Hatch for New Hampshire and Spalding Bisbee for Vermont. In February, the Oxbow girls basketball team beat Windsor for the Vermont State Championship, but the Windsor boys in March beat Oxbow and won the state hoop finals. The Vermont Special Olympics Winter Games returned to Quechee.
This is the 4th year, and many of us are now 4-year veterans of this. So this is the largest games we've had. We have over 220 athletes, so we're really excited about it.
And the Dartmouth women's basketball team made the tournament, but lost in the first round to a tough Virginia team. In April, several locals ran the Boston Marathon. Mike Cryans of Hanover was one of the area's top finishers. 2 months later, we learned that Jeff Julian qualified for the U.S. Open in Southampton, New York, but he didn't make the final round. In July, Sarah Devons, a star athlete in 3 sports at Dartmouth, apparently took her own life. The community was shocked, but the Valley pulled together to support local Special Olympians at the World Games in Connecticut. And Jeff Gordon captured the Slick 5300 at New Hampshire International Speedway. The big event in the month of August was the 42nd annual Shrine Maple Sugar Bowl. New Hampshire beat Vermont again.
End in tight on the left side. Musiak up over the ball. 4th and goal. Broken play. Musiak rolling to the left. Heading for the corner. Touchdown on a broken play.
At Stratton Mountain, Donnie Mokry won the 1995 McCall's LPGA Classic, but later in the year, McCall's would pull out of the tournament. And South Royalton became the Vermont American Legion baseball champs, but lost in the Northeast Regionals. Jeff Julian made his way back in the news with a win in September at the New England Open, and the Woodstock Country Club celebrated its 100th birthday. November brought plenty of excitement on the football field. Hartford lost to Middlebury 14-13 in the Division I finals, and Newport beat Plymouth 25-12 for the New Hampshire Division IV title. Dartmouth football put together a string of wins, and their season came down to the very last game against Princeton. They tied the Tigers in that game and just missed an opportunity for a share of the Ivy title. Disturbing news at Lebanon High School. The principal filed a hazing report with police. After an investigation, authorities determined that an alleged hazing incident had occurred at the school.
The school has adopted a policy, a comprehensive policy on for future hazing. So I don't see that as an issue in the future in Lebanon High School as to not knowing what the laws are and what the students' responsibility in conducting themselves. So based on that, I would say any further actions would be dealt with as a criminal matter.
Finally, in December, Jeff Julian pops up again. This time he qualified for the PGA Tour.
And Jeff Julian's first stop on the PGA Tour will be Tucson, Arizona.
Great. Well, thank you, Mark. Some exciting things to look forward to in 1996. Well, that's our look back at 1995 on this special edition of News 31, The Year in Review. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best in this coming year. Enjoy your evening.
Good night.
Thank you.